Welcome to the Nomad Futurist podcast, where ideas shape the future and visionaries redefine what's possible. Join us as we dive deep into the evolution of technology, society, and human potential, spotlighting the voices driving change and reimagining our world. Connect with us and join us at media.nomadfuturist.org. The future is a story we write together. Let's kick it off. Here are your hosts, Phil and Nabeel. Hello. Welcome to Nomad Futurist. This is your co-host, Nabeel Mahmood, calling in from Waikoloa, Hawaii.
This is your co-host, Phillip Koblence from Montclair, New Jersey.
And this is Mike Sullivan here in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Well, that does not sound like a Scottsdale accent, Mike. But anyway, welcome to the podcast. We've been wanting to get you on the platform for a long time. So before we get started, could you share with our audience a little bit about yourself? What do you do?
Yeah, my name's Mike Sullivan. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Air2O here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And at Air2O, we provide engineered thermal management solutions to mission critical environments. Obviously, that's heavily leaned towards the cooling and the heat rejection in data center. As you can probably tell by my accent, I'm not originally from Arizona. This is my best attempt at an Arizona accent, I'm afraid. I'm originally from Manchester in England, which is closer to Scotland than it is to London, which is why I often get mistaken for Scottish, Irish, Australian, South African, you name it, everything apart from Northern English on that side. So yeah, I'm the CEO of Air2O, and I'm very proud and privileged to hold this position.
Brilliant. So let's step back a little bit. Tell us a bit about your early life and what shaped your entrepreneurial mindset.
I think, well, as I said, I'm originally from Manchester in the UK. I've always, even at a young age, I've always felt the world's going one way and I'm going the other, whether that is, in the early days of sports I like, type of music I like, and then certainly as I entered the working world, I came to the HVAC community through my father, really. Like many kids who were 16 didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. My father was a HVAC engineer, so he said, why don't you give that a go? So I did. And I instantly fell in love with the industry. I found it fascinating. I found the whole concepts of mechanically creating environments, stimulating and challenging. So that's how I kind of got into the industry. What kind of sparked my entrepreneurial drive, if you like, is, I don't know. I think, again, starting my parents have always given me the support and belief that there's nothing I can't achieve we can't achieve in this world. And the one sentence which I really hate is, we've always done it this way. Just because we've done something one way for 100 years doesn't mean there's not an alternative, So I've always kind of looked at things a little bit differently. It's like, okay, let's do that. And again, I had the confidence instilled in me at a young age that there's nothing we can't kind of achieve and take forward. So yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about these sports that everyone is going one way and you were going the other way. What is the other way sports? Like, as you were growing up, what were you interested in that was so off the beaten path?
Believe it or not, American football.
American
football. In 1986, we had our fourth TV channel in England.
I feel like there's an entire European and English community that just collectively gasped. American football, the one you play with your hands.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah. I was shocked. So I was the guy who turned up at school with an American football tucked under my arm, and people would look at, what the hell are you doing? And it soon turned into rugby ball. But yeah, that was a sport. Channel 4 and Dan Marino and Joe Montana and Fridge and Walter Perry, all that kind of time.
And as you grew up, was there anything you wanted to do differently than that? Like, did you have a vision for you? Sometimes when you grow up and your father is in a particular role, notwithstanding the fact that that's where you eventually lead, you almost want whatever the antithesis of that is, or it's not interesting to you because it's so kind of familiar. Was there something else you had thought for yourself, even as a young child, that you would have pursued other than where you ended up?
Yeah, not in a strong way, I'll be honest. I always had a lot of kind of respect for my father and found when he'd come home from work, he'd tell me stories. I found it kind of fascinating. I guess my first kind of careers class at school, I wanted to be an architect. So architect, stroke into engineering is relatively close kind of link. But yeah, you get to 16 and you think, well, where do I go now? And it took me in that route, and it's certainly served me in good stead.
So tell us about your first job. Did you work for your dad or did you go work with somebody else?
No, I left school on a Friday, and as was normal back then, started work on the Monday. None of this kind of, we're going to take 12 months out or whatever. I started working for a mechanical contractor in Manchester, a company called Saunders and Taylor, who are no longer there. I don't believe they're no longer there, which is a great kind of foundation there. And then shortly after that, I decided that I wanted to be more involved on the design side. So I moved to an engineering or a consultancy firm in Manchester, worked there for a few years, and then actually went to university, but I didn't finish university. I left halfway through. My father was thinking of starting his own business. So he started that. I said, well, okay, I'm done with this university and let's get out there and do it. And we started in the spare bedroom back in our home in Manchester, and it grew from there. And that particular company is going strong today. My brother operates that at the moment.
It sounds like you got started like kind of late 80s, early 90s in kind of HVAC. And it sounds like it was primarily kind of commercial environments, but obviously not the computer rooms of today. What was the thing that, kind of attracted you to the HVAC world, and how did you kind of get introduced into HVAC as it relates to environmental controls in critical infrastructure? And when was that?
Yeah, well, again, to go back to the kind of early 90s when we started in a mechanical design contracting company called COSAF, it was very much industrial, a little bit of commercial. And it was all about providing solutions to existing buildings, existing buildings which had environmental problems, whether they were simply too hot, too cold, condensation issues. So we work in the food industry, in the chemical industry, logistics, warehousing, all those kind of things. And I guess that took me into the computer world, if you like, via the advent of service and small server rooms. And, back in the day, we'd put some small crack or Airedale easy coolers we did back then. And then as we constantly striving to find more efficient and more sustainable solutions, I actually started to apply swamp coolers, believe it or not. I used to import swamp coolers from Australia and not only apply them inside factories and warehouses, but we started to apply them inside server rooms and found out that they worked phenomenally well. Obviously, the operating cost was 90% lower than a traditional DX type system. And it grew from there. As obviously the industry kind of grew from a server room to a data center to where we are today, I don't think anybody could predict it, that kind of growth. But yeah, that's certainly what got me into the industry in the first place.
So talk to us about your being an entrepreneur. I mean, of course, your father was involved in that initial part. How did that conversation come about? I mean, did he work for somebody else, came back home one day, all right, we're starting something new because my son's got a brilliant idea? How did that initiate?
Yeah, I think my father I think he'd always had a burning desire and ambition to operate his own business. He worked for the large multinationals, names who we all know before, and felt that there was an opportunity in the market. We spoke about it. I was living in London at the time. And we just decided to take the plunge. My dad took the plunge, which was a bigger risk because he was a breadwinner in the family. It was no real risk for me in my head at that time, just certainly from a financial perspective. So yeah, I think it was always my father's kind of ambition, and maybe I inherited, a portion of that.
What were your parents' response when you said you were dropping out of university? Did they say, "Congratulations, now we can start this thing," or were they a little bit taken about it, or are they fine?
I feel very fortunate that they allowed me and supported me in whatever decision I made. Yes, they asked the question, "Are you sure you want to do this?" When we sat down, I said, "Yeah, it's something I want to do." I have a burning desire to kind of get out in the workplace, and I don't want to, at the time in my head, waste 2 more years. That's not certainly what I feel now. But at the time, waste 2 more years at university. Let's just go and do it. And once we sat down and spoke about it, it was right. Okay, let's do it. And we went from there.
Were you the only child? Did you have any siblings?
Yeah, one younger brother. Yeah.
And did he follow a similar path in terms of schooling?
Yeah, he left school, went into HVAC, and then shortly after we started the company, he left his contracting company and joined it. And it was funny in the early days when we're trying to project an image bigger than we actually were, and and our surname Sullivan, when my brother John, we made him use his middle name as his last surname. So, so at least it was in his middle name was James. So it's Carl James, so we didn't want another Sullivan answering the phone on that side.
It's amazing, those things. Look, I started a business with my brother as well in the late 90s. And that is a thing, right? You have to portray yourself as larger. It's kind of not the thing that you would picture, but there is credibility that you get by not all having the same last name and having at least the appearance or the illusion of multiple surnames, even, as crazy as that sounds.
Absolutely. It's just a reality. It's something which you kind of got to consider, because my mother was also the accountant. So all four of us were in business. So
I can just see you guys like transferring to another call and then putting on a different voice. You're talking to accounting.
Yeah.
If you were a legal counsel, I think that would fly just fine. Sullivan, 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 and Sullivan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bit of a tongue twister after a while.
So, of course, that did quite well. I mean, I can only imagine how the dinner conversations or holiday conversations would be. How much have we sold? How much have we deployed? Where we were at? All the thing.
Absolutely.
So
was that a challenge? I mean, I have to imagine that's a challenge also. There's something that could be said for like the separation of kind of business and pleasure. We talk about work-life balance when you're working in a company where your brother is there, notwithstanding using his middle name instead of the last name, and your mother and your father.
Yeah.
Like, is there a way to separate yourselves from that and enjoy each other's company and kind of not talk shop, as it were?
There is, but it's got to be a conscious decision. So we all sat down at in the early days, and I'm sure there was times when there was some kind of conflict. But I do recall us sitting down and saying, look, first and foremost, family is the most important and the business is second. Whatever goes on at the business, at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or later some nights, when you leave, it leaves there. And if there's any kind of conflict, it's never kind of carried over because, obviously as we grew and we got our own families, then my father became a grandfather. So and actually, as the company grew, we employed a lot more people. A lot of people found it strange that we could have probably more intense argument because of family than others. But then literally 30 seconds later, we're talking about, okay, where are we going with the kids this weekend? And people are like, what the hell is going on here? So it's not easy, but it's possible. But you've got to make a conscious decision. And a conscious decision when you do go out for dinner, try and not talk shop. Try and talk about family, and whatever else is going on in the world. So
now that you've got something different and you're at the helm of Air2O and they're still, I don't know if your father and mother are still involved in the business that your brother is now running. Do you notice like is there a difference in your relationship now as a consequence of you not being a part of the business, or is it a similar dynamic?
It's a similar dynamic. Unfortunately, I lost my mother a few years ago. My father is retired, but he still thinks he knows a lot.
I'm sure.
So he's always giving me advice whether I want it. But I'm very grateful for that. So no, I speak to my brother probably almost daily. Back in Manchester, I speak to my father a few times a week. And yeah, he's always asking about the business. And sometimes I'll have some dilemmas, some challenges. I'm not quite sure what to do. I'll run it by them, get their views and their thoughts, and because they've kind of been there, done that, and had all the experiences as well. So,
and it's actually carried downstream as well. We've got Tom on board as well, so you're carrying that legacy to bring the younger ones.
Absolutely,
as well.
So Tom, this son, he left the military when we started Air2O, and was essentially a co-founder within Air2O, and he joined us here in Arizona, and he's certainly carrying that torch.
So I guess When you was that the transition? Was the transition from you ran this business with your folks and then you moved to the States? Like, what was that transition?
Yeah, well, there was a number of things that happened. I mean, obviously, being, I guess, entrepreneurial minded, we did a few things within the company. That we introduced EVAP cooling and swamp cooling in a significant way to the UK. Me and my brother, we invented cardboard ducting, which does really well in the UK. I don't think the US is ready for cardboard ducting just yet. But then with the Air2O, we was kind of always, one of my kind of frustrations with the incumbent air handling companies in the UK and around the world is that they can do custom, but custom with some caveats. And what I wanted to do was really start a company which, from the ground up, allowed us to effectively provide engineered solutions in a competitive manner. So the idea of Air2O was permeating for quite a few years. The first products we developed with one of the original co-founders who's no longer with the company was an advanced evap cooler. So that's where the name Air2O came from. So it's H2O water, air, and, it was a few pints of Guinness, and that name kind of came out there.
How many company names were crafted over a few pints of Guinness? I can only imagine the majority.
Yeah, there was some names which I thought were genius until I woke up in the morning and looked at them. I thought, oh, that's quite good, So Air2O, and then we thought, well, okay, I do feel that this business, this concept has got legs. If we're going to do this, we may as well do this in the biggest HVAC market in the world, which is the US, and life's, for me, all about experiences. So let's do it. So we set about going through the immigration process and L1 visas and investment into the US, which took quite a while and cost quite a bit of money to do that. And yeah, we ended up here in Arizona in 2017. On my 45th birthday, actually, we flew over.
Yeah. The Air2O business has been around for over a decade now, hasn't it?
Yes, as I said, we started the business in the UK. I was running with my brother COSAP, and then we was doing Air2O at the same time. We was, again, doing the evap cooling concepts in the UK, in the Middle East. We got involved with the Qatar soccer World Cup stadiums very, very early on. So yeah, we
did you tell those guys that you actually prefer American football to soccer?
No, I did not, because they were paying the bills.
They know now. They're gonna know. You hear that, Qataris?
I don't think they've got a chance for the next at least a decade.
Yeah, but I'm full circle now. Enjoying American football, but I'm back loving my English soccer, as you guys will.
That's the thing. The grass is always greener on the other side. When you're living over there, you're like, American football. Oh, yeah, that'll be so great. Now you're in Arizona. You're like, oh, real football. That's what I need. I need real.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So moving to America is actually a big step. I mean, of course, the cultural shock and unexpected challenges. I mean, besides the immigration process that you briefly mentioned, could you share or highlight, investments or also the fact that you chose Scottsdale versus New York City? I mean, that's where typically, or San Francisco, that's where typically everyone ends up.
Are you trying to create some conflict between me and Mike? You're never going to go to Scottsdale. No, what do you hate about New York, Mike?
The weather.
It's really tough to argue with that.
Yeah. And to be honest, that was we thought, well, okay, if we're going to come to the US, I'm very proud to come from Manchester and love Manchester, Mike Union. But the weather sucks, it's cloudy and dark and rainy for a good proportion of the year. So I thought, okay, if we're going to come to the US, let's look around the Western states. And I've never been to the Western part of the US before. I've been to New York and Boston. So I came for 6 weeks to kind of just got a hire car and drove around each state. I flew into California and then went over into Idaho, Utah, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Southern California. Literally, going on the internet, finding people to talk to just kind of learn and educate myself. And okay, how does the US kind of market work? What is a manufacturer rep? It doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. And had a lot of kind of welcoming people at that time. And then when I came to Arizona and Scottsdale in particular, to be honest, I thought it was the only place I could convince my wife to move to. So I brought her over here in around April, I think it was. I'm not stupid. I didn't do it in August when it was 120 degrees. And
she's going to hear this and she's going to realize it was all just a big manipulation.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, she came over and she said, right, okay. Like I said, we both have a very strong sense of life is a journey and it's to be lived and to be enjoyed, and no one knows what's going around the corner. And she's been an incredible woman and support since day one. And moving over here, we have 5 children all over the world. It's not easy on a family, but she's the kind of the matriarch which holds it all together. Without her holding this family kind of together globally, I don't think we could have been as, or achieve any of the success which we may have achieved could not have been achieved without that support.
How old were the kids on your 46th birthday when you finally moved over here?
Oh God.
Was it
Well,
46th or
my
44th?
45,
45th.
45th. Yeah, my 45th birthday lasted a day and a half with the time difference, which was great.
Right.
And
That's
so
why you
no,
did it. Did you do it just to extend your birthday?
that's it. Yeah. I had a beer to celebrate in Manchester. I had a beer finally in the same day.
I have the perfect name for this company, Guinness 2O.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
it's not going to work. So what was the
Yeah.
age range in the kids at that point?
So at that time, they're all in the 20s.
All right. So
we-
it's
we
not
have
like
a
you had to
very-
worry about like the young schooling or
Schools.
anything like
No,
that.
well, our daughter was 10. So
okay.
she came over, but she came over and literally fell in love with the place straight away.
Well, of course, she's
She
been
has
in
an
rainy Manchester for her entire life. She's like, oh my God, there's
I
sun.
know.
I didn't
She
realize
had an
it was
American
like,
accent within 5 days. I'm like, whoa, what the hell's going on here? So, but yeah, as I said, the kids were of a grown age. And at the time, I think one kid was in Brazil, one was in Australia. Thomas came over here and
And then you've got Japan.
And yeah, now we have one in Japan as well. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we're pretty
I think
spread
your
out.
family might cover more continents than the Nomad Future Ambassadorship, and we have dozens.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Maybe not quite, but yeah, I think we might bring you a close second.
How did your kids end up being spread so far over the world?
Again, me and my wife have kind of asked this question. We've always traveled. We've loved traveling as a family. We've loved exposing the children to different cultures, different countries, different ways of being. And again, through business, I've always traveled internationally. So they would see me regularly in the old days, go off to the Middle East and Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Saudi and those kind of places. So travel was quite normal. And it does open the eyes. It does broaden horizons. And when you see so much of the world, it's like, well, actually, yeah, Manchester's great, but, life's all about experiences. One of my sons went to Japan to teach English and fell in love with a Japanese English teacher. And now they're married and have a granddaughter there. One of my other sons went to Brazil, married a girl from Brazil. Now they're back in Manchester. My other son now lives on Vancouver Island. His fiance is Canadian, and Thomas was in the military, and him and his wife and kids have moved over here as well. So yeah, it's a full life, that's for sure.
Is there anything that surprised you about where they ended up? Just knowing them growing up, like, did it surprise you that there's someone that went to Japan gravitated towards Japan, or the one that went to?
No, it didn't surprise me. It didn't surprise me that they all would feel free to go and move and live and jive whatever they kind of wanted to do that. But when I did, I've been quite many times now to Japan. Moving to the US is one thing, but moving to Japan,
it's a totally different thing.
Clearly something else. And I have a lot of admiration for Jack as to how the hell did you kind of get through that first 12, 18 months and obviously falling in love always helps on that side.
It always helps. It also helps being exotic. I've only been to Japan once, but people would stop me on the street just to take pictures.
Yeah.
I felt like a celebrity. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Yes.
Here, but somebody wouldn't pee on me if I was on fire walking around New York or anywhere in the US. But in Japan, they're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
There's a cowboy in town.
Right. Yeah. Well, that happened with many years ago. We was fortunate enough to do a lot of work with Daikin, and we was very successful. And Daikin took me to Japan in the early kind of 90s. And we went to obviously Tokyo, Yokohama, but we went to some real obscure kind of places which tourists wouldn't really go to. And, I'm a tall guy, but I felt like I'm walking through, a village or a town, and the kids were like, I don't think they've seen a Western guy, certainly nobody well over 6 foot. I felt like a little bit of a freak show. Some people would stop and stare at me and take photos. I'm like, whoa.
You know what it's like. I'm not a piece of meat. Come on.
For sure.
So talk to us about like moving from the UK to America is not necessarily a big change, but talk to us a little bit about big cultural shock that you experienced or unexpected challenges that you experienced when you moved out here.
Yeah, I think it's not easy, and there's a lot of challenges. I was kind of naive, for example, when I got here, you arrived with 0 credit rating. I couldn't get a mobile phone. In Europe, your credit rating kind of travels, but here there was like college students with a better credit rating than me. I'm like, whoa, so that was a challenge, and unfortunately I had some help kind of sorting that out. But then from a business point of view, again, it's just getting to grips with the way HVAC business operates in the US compared to Europe. Obviously, the manufacturer reps play a big part in that, and I can understand that. And we're fortunate to get some real great relationships with some reps here. But there's a lot of things. It might not be popular to say, but it's a lot more litigious here in the US and contractual than it is in the UK and Europe. So it was just getting my arms around how business operates, culturally, how things operate, and realizing that the 50 states culturally, the 50 different countries, the way you communicate and operate and what's important to people in Texas is different to what's important to people in California or the Pacific Northwest on that sense. So it's really it's still a learning process for me on that side. And I think it always will be.
And New York is totally different.
And New York is totally different. New York is just crazy.
That's why you have me as a consultant. I can cut through some of this.
Yeah.
The logistical hurdles associated with operating in New York.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you move to America, Air2O gets into the data center business. Can you share a moment when you realized that Air2O was truly going to be making an impact?
Yeah, I think, not to name names, but when major hyperscale and major colo companies are approaching you to solve a solution which the incumbent companies have either been unable or more likely unwilling to kind of resolve, that's when for me, it really, the penny really drops. It's like, oh, what we're offering here is of value. This engineered approach to sit down with the client, understand the challenges, understand the pain points, and provide that bespoke, that custom solution for the client has been wonderful. And yeah, that was really when the realization kind of occurred. It's like anything else. You can have the ideas, but until business starts to flow and you're fortunate enough to build relationships and get contracts, you never really know. But once that started to occur, then it was been onwards and upwards since then.
Look, I think what's interesting from especially the larger the company, the tendency is for it to become more rigid, less flexible, more inclined to just support, their own, the way they've done it, rinse and repeat, because that's how you scale, is by doing it over and over again. And a lot of the times you find that the people that take larger companies forward as they become public and grow and become multinational, they tend to focus more on the business element of it, the manipulation of spreadsheets, and the focus on, investor relations, and less on the creative engineering, the stuff that drives innovation, the stuff that drives that kind of entrepreneurial mindset. Is that what you have found? Is that just a perception thing, or is that reality? And is that where the key differentiator is between large companies and more nimble ones? And what is the,
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It is a reality. In a board meeting just last week, and we've been fortunate to get another significant tranche of investment into the business. And our board members are there to challenge what we're doing. And one of those challenges, would it not be easy just to kind of provide some more cookie-cutter solutions so we know what we're going to manufacture and be like a lot of the huge kind of companies on that side? And I said to them, as long as I'm this year, I will fight tooth and nail to keep this agility, to keep the strength of what we have. We employ now well over 100 people globally with a heavy engineering solution focus. And it's something which I'll always guard against, because being nimble is a huge strength. We had a colo client contact us in October about a particular challenge, a unique product, which I can't speak about, which they wanted to support in developing. So we took that challenge, and actually now the product's manufactured. It's going to go and test in their labs in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then there's some significant kind of orders coming forward. And actually they came to us, they heard about us through word of mouth, but because they'd been turned down by the obvious kind of names who, as you said, are more rigid in their structure. We're still nimble, we're agile, we can turn our hands to anything at a moment's notice. As I said, and that's something which I'll always
And I think
fight.
I'm going to play the part of, the a-hole on your board that's going to challenge your business model. And the question, you hear that, board? And I get, look, in my mind, that is not only the key differentiator, that ability to be agile and responsive and innovative to solutions. It's always going to be a key differentiator, but does it potentially limit your ability to scale And at some point, is there a threshold in terms of raising capital and bringing in new investment that has, you know, a motivation to grow at a kind of exponential pace? Is there a limit to the size that you can grow something like this that is so kind of bespoke? Because there's only so many places you can be. There's only so many people that you can employ. And I have to imagine that those 100 people that you employ enjoy coming to work. There's a cultural benefit for them knowing that they are not just manufacturing a widget for this particular solution.
Absolutely. I think, is there a limit? I don't see. We're structured in a unique way. We leverage global supply chain and global engineering. We have probably, I'm guessing, around 35 to 40 engineers who are located outside of the US. One of the challenges I had when we was growing the company was trying to find young, hungry, educated engineers. It was a challenge in the US as a challenge in the UK. And we was fortunate enough to find a group of young, brilliant engineers initially in Egypt. And that's kind of grown from there. So I think in terms of the potential of the business, in my opinion, with the structure which we have, it's relatively limitless, but also, I mean, we're well on our track now to being around 100 million in revenue. I can clearly see a billion in years to come. And that's good. We don't need to be a 10 billion company. There may be a limit at that. I don't know. But at the moment, there's certainly no limit on our kind of growth and what we can achieve.
And clearly from the standpoint, like we have a foundation whose goal it is to obviously bring new talent into this dynamic world of digital infrastructure. You have created that foundation internally. 5 kids, I can only imagine what the potential is for grandkids that can take this to 100 billion.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, this is hurry up and grow.
Right?
Well, we've got at least 3 continents covered as well. So, Mike, I've known you for a few years, and one of the things I think you briefly touched on is the global impact, the relationships, and a global mindset as a manufacturer. And during particularly COVID, when there were lead time issues, manufacturing restraints, could you share a little bit about your strategy and the globalization mindset that helped get past through that difficult 3 or 4 years to get to where you're at today?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, obviously COVID and that time was a challenge for everybody, for every manufacturer. I think I'm kind of leveraging on my and the company's international kind of experience. We use globally sourced components. So all the big manufacturers provide equipment globally. So if we need a particular fan, which is manufactured in the US, but they also have factories in Germany, or they may have factories in Shanghai, then we have relationships with all those factories, So and again, for me, it's just an awareness of the wider world and what's going on out there. The US is a very, very important economy and an important country, but there's a lot going on outside of the US as well. And so we would leverage supply chains at that time. Obviously, shipping was a challenge for everybody. Not a lot we can do when, remember at the time, I think the port of LA, there was something like 30 or 40 ships waiting to get in. And my client one of my clients at the time was going crazy because he couldn't get his unit. And I could see the ship off the coast. I went, it's just there. It's just
swim out there and get it, Mike.
I just can't get it off on that side. So yeah, we kind of navigated our way through that. And that's continued to stand us in good stead. Even now, particularly in data center and what's going on there, we are seeing supply chain challenges, which we can alleviate or overcome simply with our ability to buy and acquire components from Europe, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa.
And it goes back to the nimbleness, right? I mean, I think I have this thing, obviously, for my entire career. I'm a multi-tenant data center operator, right? And I started probably 10 years in with this mindset of not guaranteeing 100% SLA as much as guaranteeing that there's a 100% chance that you're going to go down at some point. There's going to be a problem. And the difference is, who do you want to what do you want the response to that problem to be? Do you want to call into an 800 number that routes to a billion different places before you get to someone that might be able to help you, where you're expressing your problem 20 times and explaining it in the most frustrating way possible? Or do you want like a direct channel to a group of problem solvers that are tasked with trying to help you navigate these unclear waters? And that's
Yeah.
always like a difficult, it's not a difficult thing to express, but it's kind of difficult for someone to understand it until they experience it. Like sometimes it takes a problem for them to realize that, oh my God, you are a problem solver as
Yeah.
opposed to just yet another vendor.
Agreed. And it's very much an attitude of that we will find the solution. Just because one door closes does not mean we can't find another one to open. And that kind of permeates throughout the whole company, I believe.
Yeah. So going back to the roots, and again, I would say that's because of your global experience in traveling the world and interacting with people globally, that there is this muscle memory of diversity, equity, inclusion within your organization, that you've got people of all cultures, race, beliefs, religion, so on and so forth. Did you put that as an action item when you started your own company to have it as a checkbox, or it just came in naturally? And how do you go about recruiting young talent and getting people excited about the sector that we're in?
Yeah, I think with, so just to go back to how do we recruit that talent, I think with, as I said, we had a problem to solve, and the problem at the time was, as I said, young, hungry, educated engineers. And we were struggling to find those in the US and the UK at the time. So again, through our kind of global network and reach and conversations, we got in touch with actually our first, remote applications engineer, Omar Youssef, who's still with us today. And we I think what we did in that situation, we gave them an opportunity. They're in a location in a country where maybe, opportunity is not as great as they are in certainly the UK and the US. I think from our perspective, where we were born, we certainly hit the birth kind of jackpot from that point of view. But these young, talented and fabulous people, highly educated, they're hungry to learn. They're hungry to create. They're hungry to create a better life for themselves and their families as they grow. So a lot of it has been word of mouth from classmates on that. We have links with a number of universities around the world, and, we get the opportunity to look at the students who are coming through, and we keep building and adding on that every year. It's been a huge success. And you mentioned DEI before as well. I mean, obviously DEI politically has got a bit of a bad rap recently, and maybe if you take anything too far, it's not a good thing. But fundamentally, DEI is a force for good. We have, as you know, Nabeel, a huge amount of diversity, people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different religions in the company, and it makes us stronger. We're all conditioned by our kind of upbringing, our environment in different ways. So we will look at a problem one way, and somebody from Egypt or Europe or Southeast Asia will look at something different. And having that collaborative kind of mindset with everybody and looking at things in different ways is certainly a huge strength.
I think it's a brilliant point, and I think it's something that we try to reinforce on this platform and with the foundation more broadly, is the concept that I think DEI has a bad rap now because it's a checkbox, and it's really more about kind of racial diversity, gender diversity, ethnic diversity, when in reality, the best kind of use of DEI is diversity of lived experience, diversity of perspective, and particularly in digital infrastructure, as you kind of grow these spaces to every region, every city, every corner of the planet, it's incumbent upon us to have the perspective of people that have lived experiences that align with where these types of facilities are going to be deployed. So it wouldn't make any sense for someone from Manchester to make a determination of how a piece of digital infrastructure or cooling environment in Namibia is going to be deployed. It's just not the same as having that kind of lived experience and perspective of someone that has lived within that community.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're very much, we take on projects globally. So again, the way you do business in the Middle East is different to the way you do it in Europe, to the US, to Southeast Asia, and having all that kind of lived experience within the company is certainly.
And of course, having a child in every one of those places also helps.
Well, that's always, that's helpful to go and see them as I'm traveling around.
My biggest takeaway is have as many kids as possible and just spread them out all over the place. So if you have a shipping container off the coast of anything, you can send someone out to like see it.
Yeah, isn't that what Elon is doing as well? Elon is up to what, 12 or 13 now.
That's what we're going to
do. I
have a feeling that the three of us are going to get audited as soon as this thing is online, but it's fine.
Go Doge.
Yeah. That's the first time me and Elon have been mentioned the same sentence, but I'll take
Right. Unfortunately for you, it won't be the last.
it.
So Michael, having a global experience, running an organization that's global, you're literally working or available 24/7, 365.
Mm.
How do you create that life and work balance in your current state whilst expanding the reach of the organization globally and being available for your employees and your customers?
You know, many years ago, I was getting myself kind of worked up or stressed about this work-life kind of balance. And I was being led to believe that there's got to be some kind of separation, between work and life. And I was thinking, how the hell am I going to do this? And then probably I eventually had the realization that actually it's all one. You know, my work is my life and life is work. Everything's mixed into one. So the family, first and foremost, are extremely tolerant and supportive. I'll get phone calls at 5 a.m. in the morning. I might get them at 9 p.m. at night. Sometimes I'm on the phone at 2 a.m. in the morning. I can be out having a family dinner and I say, well, sorry, I just got to nip out and take the call. But equally, if my granddaughter's doing a recital on a Thursday morning, I will go to the recital on a Thursday morning. I think for me, once the penny drops, that there doesn't have to be a separation between work and life. I found one, I was a lot less stressed. And two, I was always available. And to be fair to everybody who works with the company, if they know if it's midnight, they can call me. But they're only going to call me if there's an issue. They're not going to call me for something nefarious at that point.
So
So
it takes Bev, for instance, to totally understand that that's your life and appreciate it and not put pressure on you as well, I would imagine.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I can go a little bit off kilter with too much kind of work and not enough home life, and the devil give me a little bit of a leeway, but eventually she kind of pulls me back and expresses that she's not happy about a few things. And, I'm hopefully at that point in time, you're thinking, oh yeah, actually, yeah, you're right. Let's reel it back in a little bit. And then we carry on. And then 6 months, 9 months goes by. And then, I kind of veer off again, which no way. And I get pulled back to the center again. But I kind of respect and I enjoy that because sometimes I need that. So it's a healthy way to be.
So look, I think at the end of the day, one of the crazy things about entrepreneurs in general is that they're following this vision that they have in their head that is not a clear path, right? It's all kind of based on your passion driving you. And whenever you're doing something based on the fact that you're being driven by your passion, it's really difficult to separate your life from your work. And, there inevitably is going to be overlap because it's not like I'm punching a clock and at 9 o'clock I'm in and at 5 o'clock I'm out. There's a lot of wonderful things and flexibility that comes along with that. But there's also the flip side, which is there is no kind of obvious demarcation point between where work stops and life begins.
No, absolutely. And again, as anybody's younger, as they grow, I think that their choice in life partner, whoever that may be, needs to be completely on board with that lifestyle, because at the same time, it isn't for everybody. And that's fine. But it's just like a business. If you got people in the business who are misaligned with the purpose or the core values, then it's not going to end well. So similarly on the personal side as well, the whole family's got to be supportive.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little business. So what excites you most about the future of Air2O and the industry as whole? Like what's next? What's the next big thing?
I mean, I think
More heat, more cooling, more heat.
Yeah, more
cooling.
heat. As compute goes up, more heat, more cooling. I think the whole industry is incredibly exciting. Not only the growth, but the change, almost feels like daily with what's going on. And what excites me is that in terms of our position in the data center world, in our thermal management sector, we're at the bottom. So our kind of opportunity for growth is phenomenal. And we've got some amazing clients. We're getting more almost weekly on that side. But again, I just think the opportunity, and also, as I said, as this industry is growing, extremely fast, it's dynamic, it's changing. I'd like to think perfectly positioned to support that change with our ability to be agile as we move forward.
Brilliant. What would you tell the younger Mike? Or, I mean, you've got 5 of them now.
Yes.
So if you were to do it all over again, is there anything different that you'd do?
I think I'd tell the younger Mike not to sweat the small stuff. Don't worry so much what people think on that side, But no, there's not a lot other than that I would tell myself. I've had a strong sense there's nothing I can or my company can achieve. There's nothing we can't do. We're no better than others, and equally they're no better than us. And we deserve to be here, and we provide value. But yeah, don't sweat the small stuff. Just get on and do it.
Roll up your sleeves and get it done.
Absolutely. That's certainly we have a GSD, get stuff done, as we say.
That's the English version, not the American version.
Yeah, get stuff done. Yeah.
What is it? GBD, get bollocks done? No, that's not. Damn it.
All right, Mike. So I know you're an avid reader. What's one book that you would say that had a profound effect on what you're doing now, or that you would recommend?
Wow. Yeah, you put me on a spot there, Nabeel. There's many books which have maybe a profound effect, but it also depends on, for me, where you are in your life, and in your personal journey and the business journey, whether it's startup type books, whether it's personal management type books. I'm at the stage now where I read a lot of business biographies, and frankly, I do that for, one, I enjoy reading them, but I get, inspiration. I've just finished reading the Video Way, which is a remarkable story, but I took heart that NVIDIA did get it right on day one. They the first chip the all singing, all dancing, the chip they developed was great, but the market didn't want it. Nobody wanted it. And there's stories in that book with Jensen, and they were probably weeks away from running out of funding, and it seemed to be a fight for survival. So I think in terms of today, I've really enjoyed the NVIDIA Way. That's a good book to follow. But yeah, a lot of, I recently read the Shoe Dog, the Nike story as well. But I'm just getting kind of inspiration from all different business leaders. I think it's healthy to read, businesses outside of the vertical what you're operating in as well. But yeah, I like a lot of Robert Greene stuff as well. He's a kind of social, observational kind of guy. He wrote something, is it 100 Laws of Power or whatever it may well be. And Human Nature is a new one, which I find fascinating, very observational. So yeah, it's kind of what I read through.
Brilliant. Last question for me. If you weren't in the industry, which I think there's probably less than 1% chance, what do you think you'd be doing today?
Wow. Now, what would I be doing? I mean, HVAC has kind of been my life since 16. So, outside of HVAC, again, I'd probably go back to architecture. I do love architecture. Well, one thing I do miss actually about home and is architecture. As our majority shareholder, he's French. And when we go to Paris, I'll walk around for hours in Paris looking at buildings. I find it fascinating. I don't get that luxury in Arizona, unfortunately. It's got other attributes, but architecture is not one of them. So probably architecture. If I couldn't be a professional golfer, that's what it would be. You see my golf swings. There's no chance of me being a professional golfer.
There's one person on this podcast that could probably be a professional
golfer.
Yeah,
absolutely. I agree.
It's either of us.
Yeah, I agree, Phil.
Well, I'm glad you did not say American football.
No.
Brilliant. So, Mike, any parting thoughts? What would you tell the younger generation about where we're at as a sector to create that level of excitement for them to come and join us in this journey to better the future of technology and be innovative?
Yeah, I think we know there's a skills gap. There's a huge opportunity to get involved with an industry, which really is the center of the developed world. Without our industry, we can't communicate. We need data storage. You can't bank. You can't even watch TV. So whether we like it or not, the world revolves around data. It's an incredible opportunity to get involved in this industry. There's a shortage of engineers. Everybody's in desperate need of good engineers. And it's a wonderful, exciting career with a landscape which is constantly evolving and constantly changing,
And constantly generating heat, which needs help.
And constantly generating heat, which and we need to.
I think we need to use that as a tagline.
Right. I think that if that's my message to the board, notwithstanding my ability to play the a-hole on the board, it's industry is constantly we're not going to generate any less hot air.
Yeah, and I need to counter. I just in case the board are listening, the board are very, very supportive of me. You know?
I don't know the board, but I love them already. Thank goodness for the board. Thank goodness.
Very good. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. This has been amazing, and getting to know a little bit more about you and sharing that with our audience is immaculate. Thank you for everything that you do for the sector.
Thank you, Nabeel. Thank you, Phil, for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you for joining us on the Nomad Futurist podcast. Remember, technology, markets, and challenges will continue to evolve, but those who adapt and prepare are the ones who will thrive. Embrace the change, stay curious, and let's build a future worth moving towards. The journey has just begun, and we're glad you're here with us. Visit us anytime at media.nomadfuturist.org to stay connected and be a part of the movement. Until next time, keep exploring.